So, Fantastic Four First Steps.
Yes.
Fantastic Four finally joining the MCU. We haven't had a Fantastic Four since the failed Josh Trank version.
10 years since that failed attempt.
Really? Okay, yeah, God.
2015, yeah.
That film will do that to characters. It will kill them for 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so finally back, it joined the MCU, and was it victorious, Tommy? We'll give our sort of very general thoughts, spoiler free first.
Okay, so I am quite happy right now. This movie was good. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't fantastic, unfortunately.
Say that again?
But it was fun. I liked the characters. It has the same problems that most MCU movies have. Above all else, I think a general superficiality in dealing with what on paper are interesting themes, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But especially in the first half, I was super happy with the film. This felt fresh and new and creative in ways that the MCU hasn't been for a very long time. I loved the retro-futuristic design, the colors, the sets were gorgeous. They packed so many Easter eggs and homages to the early Fantastic Four comics in that intro. We have a recreation of the first Fantastic Four cover with the monster coming out of the ground, Mole Man being Mole Man. So I like that. I bought into these versions of the Fantastic Four pretty quickly, with some exceptions, which we'll also get into, I guess. So if Thunderbolts was a slightly disappointing step in the right direction for the MCU, this film continues down that road.
This film is the first steps, you could say.
The 37th step. Fucking almost 40 movies in the MCU now. But yeah, it's competently made superhero movie that gives me hope we might not be completely screwed moving forward.
Well, I hated it.
Nice. All right, this is gonna be fun.
No, I'm joking.
Okay.
It was, you know what? It felt like I was watching old MCU again.
Nice.
Like I had this moment in the theater when I was watching it. I was like, oh, this feels, maybe it was just the retro futuristic vibe, but this felt like a more phase 1, phase 2 era.
It felt very phase 1, yeah. True.
Yeah, era of movies. And yeah, for the most part I really enjoed it. I've got several issues.
Of course you do. You joyless fuck.
Well,
No, I have issues too.
I got quite a few, but yeah, for the most part, this was really enjoyable. And to compare it to Superman, I didn't see Superman on the opening night, so maybe that played a factor. But my cinema was pretty full.
Yeah,
people stayed. Yeah, almost everybody in the theater stayed for the mid-credit. Myself and many others left before the final credit sequence.
Oh, I can tell you all about it. It was so good.
Good. I thought it'd be a jokey one because they gave you a good one in the mid-credits, so I was like, okay, I'm happy to leave at this point.
Yeah, it was a useless one.
But yeah, I was just looking around and it felt like, these people still care about the MCU, and it could tell people were staying in the theater because they knew this was going to be an important mid-credit scene and stuff. So it gave me a very nostalgic feel. And not that the film is as good as some of those phase 1 movies. I think it lacks characterization, and it feels like a bit like Superman, how we're thrown into an already established world.
Yeah.
And we don't get a lot of the origin of these characters, which really creates who they are. So yeah, I think it's a bit lacking in some of that sense, but for the most part, it had some really enjoyable moments. There's a good maybe 30-40 minute chunk in the middle that I really liked, and I thought was genuinely really exciting.
Yeah, the parts where they do the little trip in space, that was definitely some of the best.
Yes, that's when the film really kicked into gear for me. It kind of had like a few different jump starts. I feel like it was kind of a bit weird at the beginning, but then that moment when Silver Surfer comes down, we've all seen it in the trailer. She says she's a herald for Galactus, and they decide they're going to go and confront Galactus rather than waiting for him to come there. And that's for me when the film really kicked into gear.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this weird choppy feeling, because I think that is something that has a lot to do with editing and cutting out stuff.
Oh yeah.
And there's a bunch of stuff that was cut out and that was shown in the trailers and is not in the movie. So I think that's an interesting topic. But first, I wanted to address the marketing. We made a video, a preview for both Superman and Fantastic Four, where we went through some of the promotional material for the films. And now that I've seen the film, I hate these trailers and clips that Marvel has shared even more.
They don't do it justice. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because it's the trailer we looked at, what we criticized for how bad it looks. That scene where Johnny's riding the things back.
They fixed it.
They changed that shot. They
Yeah.
didn't only just fix it, they changed the take or something like that. Because in the trailer version, he's screaming, "Say it!" for ages, and it was a bit cringe and it didn't look very good. And in this one, in the actual movie, it's shortened really quick. And it's not as highlighted of as a moment, and I think it worked better that way, and you're not focusing on
And he had
this.
flames on his whole body as well, which was better.
Yes, it looked so much better. Yeah, the marketing material didn't really do this much justice, this film.
Yeah, and like I understand that we've had more exposure to this promotional material than most. By making videos on these topics, we've seen these clips 1,000 times over. So that might not be true for everyone, but I feel like the marketing spoils literally everything that happens in the film. I knew exactly where specific scenes would come up based on the trailers. So that is disappointing. And I wonder what my opinion would be if we went in completely fresh. And also the marketing lied. That was also something that really bothered me. Like they were trying to get people upset to make them talk about the movie more by saying stuff like Johnny won't be a womanizer anymore because that's bad.
I know, that some rage baiting, because it was Joseph Quinn himself who said that, and Vanessa Kirby herself said things about her character. Johnny saying he's completely changed and he's like a soft, the more modern man or whatever.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily true. Yeah, so I thought that was a bit, like you said, a bit rage baity potentially.
Reed is clearly the leader of the team. Johnny's whole deal in the movie is that he falls in love with a sexy alien, so he learns another language to impress his crush and wants to have unprotected sex in space. So it's Johnny's storm. It's fine, and I don't understand why they would say...
I do still think there is some truth in that, like, because they take away, he's not as brash and braggadocious as we've seen in previous iterations. So then they try and give him what his thing to do is to decipher the Silver Surfer's language. And it's like, in the movie, when I was watching it, I was like, why don't you just fucking ask Reed? He can do this in 5 minutes.
He's busy doing other stuff, man.
I know, he's busy, but he can still do it in 5 minutes. That's how smart he is. So I thought them giving that to Human Torch was a bit like, I kind of feel like maybe you don't know what to do with him a little bit.
We need to give him something to do while he's not on fire. Well, we should go into the characters, right?
Yeah, we'll go into more like plot details, I suppose. Yeah, for people who don't know what the film is about, we skip the origin. We get a TV show introduction to the Fantastic Four, and they're being introduced to an audience, and that's how we get our exposition dump here. And it's done quite well. It's they do that. They show you, the Fantastic Four. They went up to space and got their powers, and I would have quite liked to have seen some of that.
Yeah.
They just show like 16mm footage of them preparing for the space flight, and then, which all looked amazing, by the way. It was very, very cool visually, but then like the film starts breaking and there's like screaming sounds in the background, so you never see the accident, which I thought would have been interesting to see a little flash of it or something. And then they come back to Earth, and you get this sort of introduction of them already being very established heroes, and they're going around and they're like, they defeated Mole Man, and then they defeated this guy who's got the apes, like smart apes or something.
Yeah, that was supposed to be John Malkovich's character.
Was it? Okay, right. There you go. Because I assumed John Malkovich was supposed to be in that montagey bit.
Yeah, we go into the issue with the length of the film. I mean, the film is quite short. And as I was saying in the beginning, I think this is because a bunch of stuff was cut. And one of the things that was cut is the character that John Malkovich was supposed to play. That's completely removed from the film. He's only mentioned at the very beginning, as you said, in this montage is shown. One of these super intelligent apes is shown in like a brief 5-second scene fighting with Reed Richards.
Reed kicks him into the ocean and kills that monkey.
Exactly. And then you missed it, but in the final post-credit scene, we have this little title sequence for the Fantastic Four cartoon, and there you see this red ghost character with his apes being beaten up by the Fantastic Four.
Oh, that's silly. Why didn't they keep that in the movie? That seems like a weird choice, to cut that.
There's an interview with director Matt Shackman on Variety where he confirmed before the movie was released the decision to cut Malkovich out of the movie, and he was part of this lengthy introductory sequence that was detailing the Fantastic Four's early years as superheroes, which we do see, but it's a very fast-paced TV format, documentary style recreation.
The only villain, we obviously see the monkey fight, but the only villain apart from that we actually see as Mole Man, and he just is like getting arrested.
Yeah, I assume they kept him just because they needed him for the finale.
Yeah, exactly. But I would have liked to have seen. There's such a wealth of good and interesting villains from the comics. You know, they could have had a couple little moments where we see them actually fighting like a known villain, and I thought that would have been cool. And obviously, that's what they wanted to do with John Malkovich. And it was a shame because, like you said, the film is fairly short. I don't know why they wanted to cut the runtime down so much.
It's a marketing decision. The shorter the movie, the more screenings you can do in a day, the more money you can get. So I guess, they're so scared people are not going to show up.
They kind of did it with Thunderbolts as well. And I heard Fantastic Four was screened to death before it was released, and I think that aided in a lot of what they cut. But I think Thunderbolts went through extensive cuts, and they like really wanted to try and get that down to somewhere between that 90 minutes and 2 hours.
Honestly, these screenings that they do to see if the movie's working, I think they do more damage than anything else. Like, did you hear that James Gunn fought to the death because they wanted to cut the scene where Superman saves the squirrel, because people in the test screenings were saying, oh, that's stupid, I don't like that. And like the executives at DC were like, oh, we should cut that scene then because people are not responding well to it. And James Gunn was like, no, I'm keeping it.
And James Gunn fucking dies on that hill. He's like, no, this is the pinnacle of the movie.
I mean, I'm glad that scene is in the film. It's that personal touch.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very memorable moment. I think it's a thing that people will remember from that Superman film. It's like, oh, he even saved a squirrel. That's how much he cares. So I get why he wanted to fight that in. And I think also audiences didn't react well. I think in a scene like Ultraman or the engineer punches Crypto in the face or something.
Yeah. And you love that. You would have loved that.
And audiences like take this out, and it's like, well, yes, because it's like, I don't know who they get for these early screenings. I've never been to one myself, so I don't know who they get for these shit.
You need to be in LA, I think, to be eligible.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think that too many cooks in the kitchen. If you're happy with your vision, just go for it.
Yeah. So I'm guessing the beginning of the film was supposed to be longer, and if these cuts are for the better or for the worse, I cannot say, of course, but it definitely felt choppy in parts, like there were entire scenes missing in between what we got to see, and that's not just limited to the first half of the movie. I think the whole film feels like that.
Yeah.
And I would love an extended version that reintegrates all these scenes into the movie, honestly, because I feel like the film would probably be better for it.
That's kind of also a reason why it felt like a bit throwbacky to me. Like, it was such a very simple story, and it was, it didn't go off in any weird directions, didn't necessarily surprise me in any way. And, like more modern superhero films are 2 hours long, and you have so much in between filler stuff. Whereas this was just like bang, 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 next important scene. But I would have enjoyed it somewhere a bit more in between sort of run time. We needed to flesh out certain characters more. Ben Grimm, I really like Ben Grimm in this film.
Me too.
I thought he looked really good. And, everything, same thing about what we said about the marketing. All the shitty VFX we saw in the trailers, like none of that is in the movie. I thought this was one of the best looking Marvel movies in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, all the visual effects looked really good. There's a bit in the spaceship, which is probably my favorite scene, when they're running away from Galactus. They're going through the wormhole, and the ship's got like a red warning light on, and all the characters are sort of bathed in red inside the ship.
The whole sequence was amazing.
Yeah. And the thing looks amazing. Like, it's some of the realest CG I've seen in Marvel movies since like Infinity War, Endgame kind of levels. So yeah, I was really impressed with that. But like, his character, he could have done more. We never really got that inner turmoil that he's going through, and I guess we don't, because we don't get the origin, so we never really explore that.
They already done that with Michael Chiklis.
Yeah, they're like, just the story.
Yeah, it felt like he suffered the most from these cuts that they did. It was clearly something that was done late in production to get the movie under a certain timestamp. And I'm sure this relationship to the lady from Russian Doll was supposed to be more than like 3 scenes total.
Yeah. It felt very superficial. Like, they did that better with the blind lady in Fantastic Four 1 and 2 back in the day. So that was a bit of a shame. And it's a very Sue Storm and Reed Richards focused movie, which is fine because in an ensemble cast, I suppose you want to latch on to certain characters more. But yeah, I feel like Human Torch and The Thing do suffer slightly from this, and also Galactus suffers from this a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll get to that. But what did you think of The Thing's voice?
You know what? I didn't, again, marketing wise, didn't like it before. But then he was really good. I love the scene when he's like joking around with the kids behind the fence. Like that sold me on The Thing.
Yeah.
The main thing I needed to see is like, yeah, I get who this guy is. Yeah, I thought he was really good. He's probably one of the best characters casting wise in the end out of the four.
Yeah, I still would have preferred a more gravelly voice, I guess, but it worked well enough for me. And
Yeah.
also the clobbering time running gag was fine.
I told you he's going to be flying down and hit Galactus in the fucking face when they do that.
I mean, we expected it to be. And I think we would have reacted to it differently if it wasn't in the marketing material. Again, just fucking spoiling everything and attracting all this criticism beforehand, which is so unnecessary. But yeah, The Thing was fine. And as you said, the effects were really impressive. And the reason for his beard at the end really made me laugh. Like they're not using electricity anymore to set it up, and so he can shave
and
it.
it didn't look that ridiculous. Like I was fully invested in this character, and I didn't look at it at any point and be like, fucking hell, this looks bloody awful. No, yeah, I was sold by it. But yeah, so we're talking about the sort of opening of the film. Yeah, we get the introduction, get the montage, establishing them as heroes, and then it kind of felt like the film had almost two beginnings for me. And then we ramp down the pace a little bit, and we start focusing on the fact that Sue's pregnant, how we're going to deal with that, and how Reed is overcomplicating and overanalyzing all the things that could go wrong, and they're worried about the baby having powers and stuff. And that becomes a bit of the central focus of the plot for a while, until we see the scene from the trailer when Silver Surfer comes down and the sort of inciting incident of the story happens, and she says Galactus is coming, and then the film sort of ramps up in pace again. That's when it really kicks off for me, and then from then on, for the next sort of 40 odd minutes, I loved the movie. I was proper along for the ride.
Yeah, and maybe we should get into spoilers now, because to discuss what happens in the film, I think we need to get into the central dilemma that was spoiled too. But, to discuss it, we kind of need to get into it a little bit.
I mean, we didn't talk about it because it was so close to the movie, but they showed a trailer of the Galactus chat with Reed and Fantastic Four, and so we know that Galactus is after Franklin Richards. So we like you said, they tell us fucking everything.
Yeah,
that was something they probably could have kept secret.
Absolutely. I mean, like, why do you need to spoil that? Why do you need to spoil that Sue is pregnant? Why do you need to tell me? Like, I don't like, that's not a selling point. Like, the selling point is Galactus, it's a Silver Surfer, it's space stuff. So yeah,
they hid all that in the first trailer. They hid that Sue was pregnant really well. I would have had no idea if we'd only seen that promotional material, and it would have been better that way. But God, that didn't hurt the introduction of Galactus in this film.
Oh no,
me. That was sick. He was so cool.
Yeah, visually amazing. Love the armor, the big spaceship, his big ass throne, and there was a lot of Kirby-ness on that set. Like all the tubes and machinery had these patterns on them that was very reminiscent of Jack Kirby's style in early F4 comics, which I really appreciated. Yeah, great presence from what's the actor's name? He was also in Nosferatu.
Ralph Ineson. He's fucking awesome. He's always good in everything. He's, Robert Eggers. He's always in Robert Eggers films. He's got a very gruff northern voice, and I was quite excited to see how he sounded, because he's so northern, like English northern. Ralph Ineson. I was like, is Galactus going to sound like he's from Yorkshire? Like, I wonder how he's going to talk, but I fucking love the voice, man. He was awesome.
Yeah, he felt properly menacing and evil, but also like he had no choice in doing what he was doing. And I guess in the end, he goes out like a little bitch.
Oh my God. He goes out like a bitch. And it almost ruins, me and my brother were talking on the way back, and it's like, we were like, oh, Galactus was probably our favorite bit of the movie. But then you're like, well, how he goes out almost ruins what he's done before. And I needed another longer scene with him when Silver Surfer comes back after letting the Fantastic Four escape, and he sort of strangles her with his telekinesis. I think he says one line where he's like, "You failed me," or something very generic.
Yeah.
I would have loved a bit more of getting into his character at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I guess, it was a bit underwhelming. I didn't dislike it. It's just like most things in this movie, I was hoping for a little more. And I'm sure it'll be back and Silver Surfer will be back. But the way they used them in this film felt a bit anticlimactic. Like, we'll get into the ending later, but yeah.
Yeah. But when he's scanning the ship, and then his like eyes scan, like focuses on Sue's belly, and it's like, oh damn. And then he says, "I'll spare your planet if you give me your son." And I can sense he has the power cosmic. I was like, all that stuff was fucking awesome. And he was talking about how billions of years ago somebody did the same to him. They took this giant god took him and made him become Galactus, and he wants to find his successor. I thought all that was really cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting also because I was expecting them to just make him a celestial in the film. Like, we've had this kind of giant humanoid godlike figures in the MCU before, but they wanted to go for like a different route. Like, he was a man and he was turned into this godlike figure later. So that was cool. And I really like the dilemma of, okay, should we give up our son to save Earth? I really like this aspect of the story, but I felt the way they explored it was a bit meh. Like, first of all, like one thing that I wanted to address, I just hated how this thing comes up with the public on Earth. They go to Galactus, he tells them, okay, I want Franklin. They were like, fuck you. They go back home. By the way, I was expecting them to return to Earth and maybe like a couple of years had passed because, of the black hole. It was just 1 month.
Yeah, that was a bit weird. I thought actually they were gonna slingshot into like a different universe or something like that, and we were gonna see like a different version of Earth, and then they were gonna come back home or something like that.
That's another thing that I kept expecting to happen. Yeah, because I was expecting them to end up in the main MCU timeline at some point, and that's what was gonna kick off everything else. But they don't. They resolved this very cleanly, which was disappointing. But so they have this press conference, right, when they get back, and Reed Richards, the smartest man alive, just tells everyone.
I don't think it's fair to call Pedro Pascal's iteration of Mr. Fantastic the smartest man alive, because
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be.
he certainly doesn't come across like that in this movie.
He just tells everyone, hey, Galactus wants our son, but we won't give it to him, so he's going to destroy Earth, and, you're gonna die. Anyway, have a nice day.
Yeah, you guys cool with that, by the way?
I understand this information needs to get out to the public in order to create drama and conflict in the film, but it's the way it happens. It's so weak. It just bothers me. Like, why would Reed tell them this information when he hasn't formulated a plan yet?
Yeah. It's instantaneous. He gets back, and it's not even a conversation. Maybe we missed that. We don't get to see that on the journey home. But like you can give it a couple days and think about what you're going to do before you decide to tell the truth. But yeah, it was too rushed.
I was frustrated in the theater when this happened, and just from the top of my head, I was like, an easy solution that would have taken literally a minute of screen time would have been like, use the mayor character that does literally nothing the whole movie. She comes up to them a bunch of times, and she's supposed to be a character, but she doesn't do anything. So like, they do the press conference. Reed doesn't tell the public the truth, because why would he? But then maybe the mayor later like presses them for answers. So they tell her, they ask her to be discreet, but then she either leaks it out or someone overhears and shares the information with the press. Like, they make it less stupid, please, because it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, and then also it gives them another reason. It's like, hey, you lied to us, you betrayed us, and you wouldn't tell us the truth as well. It creates that added conflict. There is a lot of ways they could have done that better, but that's why in certain things seem so rushed in this movie. They just want to get you quickly to the next beat.
Yeah, they have this problem to deal with, and I thought it was quite compelling how Reed obviously considered doing it to save everyone. But then, they decide to use this teleportation device, and the whole world comes together and builds this incredibly complex technology in like weeks. I don't know how much time passes.
The only note I decided is because I was watching in the cinema, and obviously you don't want to be fucking writing shit down on your phone, but like the only note I made on my phone was Reed has the funniest, and this is what I mean by when it's like, can you really say he's the smartest man in the universe? He's like, there's no difference between teleporting an egg and the Earth. The only difference is scale. And I'm thinking, I don't know, man. I think the makeup of the Earth is quite different to the
Yeah.
makeup of an egg.
Well,
I think teleporting them is quite different.
actually, in the MCU, that might not be true. And this gets to something that I wanted to say because this scene was very funny to me for a very specific reason. And I want to believe this was intentional because to test, as you said, to test the teleportation device, Reed uses an egg. And as we know from movies like Eternals and Captain America 4, A Birdman versus the President, Earth itself is an egg.
Oh, see, those are the two MCU movies I haven't seen. So there you go. I missed this.
You jumped off the Marvel train early enough not to be subjected to this atrocity. So basically, the Earth is an egg because it's basically an incubator for a celestial being that will one day hatch from the Earth and destroy it.
Right. Okay. So he was fucking right. Okay. Fair. I've been corrected.
The whole plot of Eternals is that they need to stop the Celestial from hatching and blowing up Earth. And I think they purposefully used an egg here because people were making fun of this concept that Earth is an egg. So it's subtly implying that a chicken egg is just a smaller version of Earth. And I found that weirdly hilarious.
Okay, so it's pre-established in the law. I apologize to Mr. Fantastic for his ridiculous statement.
But yeah, like he proposes this plan to teleport the Earth away from Galactus, and everyone agrees, okay, let's build this. And I kinda like that. Like it felt very Silver Age of comic books, such an
Yeah.
idyllic version of Earth that everyone gets along and works together and makes this
Yeah.
technology happen.
And you know what I liked? I really liked how we got there as well. He's doing this whole Archimedes lever thing, and he puts this equation on the whiteboard, and he's like, I have to find something that's grounded in reality about Galactus to have that piece of information to go off to find out his weakness or whatever. And he's thinking about that, and Sue goes outside to quell the crowd from their protests against Fantastic Four. And she says, we're all one big family. We're in this together. Then she's like, you all know my backstory. My mum died when I was young, but she used to say, I'll move heaven and earth for you, Sue and Johnny. And that gives Reed his idea. He's like, I'm going to move heaven and earth. I'm going to move the earth to another place where Galactus can't find us. And I really liked all that. Like that stuff all really worked.
Yeah, I did like that. And I liked how like the plan worked and then didn't work. It just felt a bit too quick, too easy.
I know.
I guess they could have ramped up the tension a bit more. I feel like the main issue that I have with the latter half of the film is there's no real falling action in this film. We don't have a lowest point our heroes need to get back up from, right?
Yeah, this is why maybe it would have been good to have a sub-villain. Mole Man ended up just being basically a big joke, but you could have had another ground-based villain that's, not into saving the world or whatever. He doesn't believe the Fantastic Four, and he's like trying to stop the plans of the portals around the Earth or something like that, that they have to deal with whilst the threat of Galactus is there or something like that. But yeah, I know what you mean. We're just flying through these events in this sort of middle and end acts of the film.
It was resolved in this very clean, very obvious way. They stop Galactus with no casualties. Silver Surfer sacrifices herself, which I guess is what Silver Surfer does. But basically repeating what we've already seen in a previous movie is not like the best way to make the film stand out.
Oh no.
And I don't know, I think we spoke about this before. I was expecting them to take advantage of the fact that this is an alternate Earth to literally blow up the Earth. That was going to be the event that forced the Fantastic Four to hop on the main MCU reality. I was expecting the film to end on this dour note. So when everything was resolved so cleanly, it was a bit disappointing to me.
I don't know whether people had suggested this in leaks or I had heard this elsewhere, but I feel like a lot of people were expecting that. And I was totally expecting that as well, that Galactus was going to win. I suppose it wouldn't make too much sense for the Fantastic Four to leave with Franklin and leave the whole Earth to die. But I thought there might be some situation where
they were forced to do it.
Yeah. Oh, they tried to teleport everybody and they couldn't, and only they managed to get out. Something like that. But yeah, they really missed an opportunity to have Galactus win, but do exactly kind of what they did in like Infinity War. Or like the end of, Thor Ragnarok or something like that, where Thanos and you're leading into Avengers Doomsday on a note where a villain has just won.
Everything seems lost.
Yes. Yeah. And now when we bring back Galactus, we're going to be like, oh, we'll just bring Sue Storm in. She has the power to defeat Galactus.
I mean, she died, though.
Okay, I
I mean,
suppose she died. I didn't believe for a second she wasn't coming
I
back.
mean, not even an infant baby would believe Sue Storm was going to die. So
Yeah. But it's yeah, you now have potentially, not a anywhere comparable film because I think Ant-Man Quantumania is pure shite. But
yeah,
they have Ant-Man defeat Kang in that film, and once you've done that, you can't then build up this character to be a galactic threat again because you've had one character who's supposed to not be that powerful. Sue Storm is powerful,
yeah.
but the fact that she was pushing Galactus herself into the portal, basically, I hated that as the end of the film. And then Silver Surfer, who I thought was a completely nothing character in this, really, she pushes Johnny out the way because it's like, fuck you, girls get it done.
Oh, come on. No, it's yeah,
Do you
it's
not do you not think it had a bit of that?
I felt like they did the bare minimum to justify her actions in the end. I thought she was fine in the role. She was cold and dangerous, secretly tragic. I was hoping they do
She's the
more.
exact same as Norrin Rad, and
Yeah,
done better in the other Fantastic Four film, unfortunately. He was a better Silver Surfer to me.
I guess they had to establish her as a villain turned good and she'll be back and play a more interesting role in the future. So they had to get her like classic arc done. She stands up to Galactus and that's it. The effects on like we discussed the special effects in our preview and we briefly mentioned they looked a lot better in the actual movie and I thought the effect on her skin was actually quite cool.
Yeah. Yeah, she looked pretty good. And like I said, the sequence where she's like surfing through the wormhole, chasing their 4 ship was really good. And yeah, I just think she was a bit nothing in the end. And you could see the turn coming from a mile away. And yeah, like I said, it's been done in another movie, which is why they should have done something different in this one.
Yeah, subvert our expectations of it. Maybe she remains evil. I don't know.
Yeah. And Sue Storm is also using sort of the power of childbirth. She's like mimicking the same childbirth as she's pushing Galactus back into a hole.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't really pick up on that, man. Are you okay?
Did you not? I feel like it's very clear that she is childbirthing Galactus back into the portal, but I didn't like that.
I kind of liked it. I again, the ending was a bit meh, and it's always the same problem with these movies. They had to appeal to everyone. They had to be these big crowd-pleasing blockbusters, so they can never push the envelope that much. And this movie pushed the envelope more than most, I think. But then we always have this very predictable third act, and I don't know how we can solve this. Honestly, I understand it's the nature of the genre to have like a big war-ending fight at the end, and then the heroes win. But I feel like other Marvel movies managed to twist that formula enough that it felt fresh and not entirely predictable. And here we have the most predictable way it could go, it goes. And then we have this scene with Sue Storm. Oh my god, is she dead? Like what? Like no one is gonna believe that. Please.
Yeah.
I know that you want to establish the powers of Franklin, but find another way. I don't know. Like that was a bit underwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also we were talking about Silver Surfer, they removed the scene when Johnny chases her up into the sky and then he falls down, and the scene that was very similar to the one in Silver Surfer, the 2007 one. Yeah, you remember we said, oh, that looks exactly the same. They removed it, like when he's...
Yeah, they did still have that scene.
But the shot of him falling down and the earth but behind him was not in the movie.
Yeah, I liked that from the trailer, I thought.
A lot of gorgeous shots in this film. Can we just say, like, because credits where credits due, some of these Marvel movies, the cinematography is never really that impressive, especially because, the CGI has not been very impressive lately. But here we have a bunch of very cool wallpaper level shots.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, almost every scene with Galactus in it looks awesome. And yeah, all the production design is so on point. All the gadgets, Herbie looks great. The costumes are cool.
Yeah.
Visually, everything is absolutely on point, which for a while, the MCU hasn't been that. So yeah, that was good to see it. Like how Thunderbolts felt a bit cheap. Quantumania felt cheap. This feels like, the budget was spent appropriately. And maybe because they had a bit more of a clearer idea on what they wanted wanted to do with this film.
Yeah, and it's still early days for us. The movie just came out yesterday, so we don't really know how the box office is gonna shape up. But we were discussing earlier, did this film felt more like phase 1 or phase 2 level of MCU, like establishing these characters, establishing a story that can move forward in interesting ways. And I wanted to ask you, do you think you would have reacted to this film differently, more or less positively, I guess, if it was released either early on in the MCU, right after Endgame, before this long stretch of bad stuff, Disney Plus TV shows and all that? Do you think you would have liked it more or less, or
I think I liked it more because the bar has been set quite low, and this film is very safe and it's quite generic. So yeah, I think that's why it feels a bit more classic, like phase 1, phase 2 for me, just because it's back to dealing with your classic characters that everybody knows and loves, and just telling a very simple story about them, and kind of everybody's hitting the right beats. Whereas in recent films, they want to focus on really obscure characters and, want to try and highlight certain others over others. And this felt just a return to classic. But I think if this came out in phase 2, it would be like an Iron Man 2, Thor 2 level of quality here.
All right, I think the quality is a little bit higher here. Production design and the vibe of the movie is quite unique, I think. But yeah, the plot is very predictable, and
it's just that ending. That ending really brings it down for me. Yeah. Unfortunately,
it's just so simple, and also. Can we discuss the post credit yet, or is it too early?
No, well,
I think we should.
Just before we go, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Reed Richards. What did you? Because I thought pretty much for everyone else was surprisingly better than I thought they would be.
Yeah.
Whereas he was so flat in this film, and he was he had this very miserable, dour tone for pretty much most of the film. I liked, and the only real bit of performance when he was crying over Sue at the very end, I thought he did a good job. But the rest of it, bad casting, and I feel the same now seeing the film.
I mean, I like Pedro Pascal. I think he's a great actor. I didn't like the idea of Pedro Pascal as Reed, and I don't think the film has changed my mind. He is the character that takes the longest to become interesting. They hold back on him a lot. That's probably why you felt he was so flat. I think in the first half hour, he's barely a character. He doesn't really show any emotion either way. There's a nice scene at the beginning where they find out that Sue is pregnant and his reaction is appropriate. But then we have the reveal that Galactus wants the baby. And from here, I think the character improves because he has to come up with all these different ideas to save everyone. And of course, the dilemma he struggles with, should I sacrifice my son to save Earth? But again, the problem is not dealt with in a very satisfying way. So it's addressed, they fight about it, but then it's immediately, okay, of course, we're not going to give up our son. He's crazy. Let's do this Incredibles-like plan to get rid of him and teleport him away from Earth. So yeah, I agree with you. He's the weakest link in this cast, in my opinion. Not just because he's a great actor again.
Oh yeah.
And in the scenes where he needs to do the thing, show his acting capabilities, he does. But he's not, I don't know. I didn't buy him as Reed Richards as much as I hoped I would. And also moving forward, I feel again, as I mentioned in our preview video, he's such a big movie star. I fear that they won't be able to do a lot with the character because of how busy Pedro Pascal will be in the future with movies and TV shows and stuff. They'll just do Doomsday and Secret Wars, and maybe if this does very well, they'll do another Fantastic Four film, and that's it. Yeah. And I think, I would love a big trilogy of movies on the Fantastic Four, with a nice overarching kind of thing, and could be really interesting, but I don't think they will be able to do it with Pedro Pascal.
No, I think there's been some reports, I don't know where this come from, who said this. It might be Kevin Feige that said it, and he did some big interview recently, but they're saying that Reed Richards is going to become sort of the new leader of the Avengers, basically, over the next couple films, which is a little bit disappointing. I think also in the film, I had a little moment to myself in the final battle with Galactus. I was like, we haven't seen Reed Richards do anything interesting with his stretching powers at all.
Yeah.
And then just as I was thinking that, he climbs up Galactus's back and he's like pulling out his like cable things or whatever, and it's like releasing. It's like it seems to be hurting him in some ways, like releasing some sort
Yeah,
of
he's
energy.
raising the energy that he uses to survive.
Yeah. And then Galactus grabs him and starts stretching him in his hands, which was probably like the one of the coolest scenes in the film for me.
Yeah, I love that how the suit breaks as well.
Yeah. And you genuinely feel like, oh, yeah, they're actually finally pushing, like, oh, this is, there's a threat and there's something scary happening here. But
and there's a physicality to his power. Like, you understand then that he can't just stretch infinitely. He can do it a little bit, like maybe he can stretch his arm to like up to 3 meters, but that's it. And if you stretch more, he's gonna break. So like I like that.
Yeah, and that was really the only moment of his stretchy powers you get to see. And it's a shame because, like, I don't know, stretching like is quite a cool visual power. And we've said it before, when we did our Fantastic Four retrospective, it's a bit of a goofy looking effect and it's hard to do right.
Yeah.
But when you watch something like Invincible, obviously it's animated, so it's easier, but you see characters with stretching abilities and the cool things a character can do. So things like you could stretch your whole body and turn into a sheet and wrap yourself around somebody to like suffocate them and things like this. There's loads of cool things you can do, and he didn't really do any of them.
Ian Griffith in the first Fantastic Four, he does that at some point. He wraps himself around Doom.
And then it looks fucking ridiculous.
I love that.
But hey, it's the power set, unfortunately. So I was a bit disappointed in that. And when you think about it, Johnny Storm, similar. I was hoping or expecting when he wants to finally push Galactus, get that last shot of him pushing him through the portal, like Johnny was going to go supernova or something. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't really do anything out of the ordinary.
The coolest thing he does is just in the very beginning when he like absorbs the flames from these buildings. Like that's the most like original thing. And I also felt like the effect was a bit uneven. Like it looked really good in certain scenes and bad in others.
The very first scene where he sort of jumps off the balcony and we're like locked onto his back and we're like flying up to see Silver Surfer, I thought that was fucking really cool. But yeah, like you said, it's very uneven in other places. Similarly, I think the Thing doesn't get to use his powers in very interesting ways. I don't know, probably the best thing he does is the flying down shot on Galactus, the cannonball sort of hit. But yeah, I don't know, a bit unimaginative in the fight scenes with their powers, I thought here.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest issue. But the powers were rendered properly, like especially like Sue Storm. I thought these fractals, like light shining through a prism to show her power, was a unique way of visualizing it. And when he makes the ship invisible at the beginning and the birthing scene in space, I thought that was really cool.
She was the best realized character out of the four, for sure, and the best realized in terms of her powers. And you don't have to do something cool in a fight scene, but like when she makes her belly go invisible and you can see Franklin through her stomach, like that was really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
It's showing you using the powers in an interesting way.
Yeah. Just one more thing on Johnny. I liked him. It was a fresh take on the character. And he had all the elements we expect of him. He likes ladies. He makes fun of Ben. He's nice to his sister. He worked. But I think Joseph Quinn looks too much like a good guy. I like my Johnny to have more of a bad guy look. And Chris Evans pulled that off perfectly while also being perfect casting for Captain America too.
Yeah.
So, Chris Evans did it better even though it was in a worse movie by every other metric.
Yeah, I think that's also down to just in general softening the edges of his character. He's nowhere near as he's sort of poking fun at Ben as we've seen in previous iterations, and he's way overly loving of his sister in this, and you don't, there's not enough conflict between him and the family or anybody in the family, because they're all just getting on so fucking damn well and they all love each other, which is fine, but the whole point of the Fantastic Four is that conflict and how different they are.
It's about family, and that's what's so good about it. I was half expecting, man, like at the very end of the movie when Silver Surfer sacrifices herself to save everyone. There's this moment where Johnny Storm is about to push Galactus into the portal, and I felt like that was an appropriate moment for Vin Diesel to jump in on his car and be like, no one sacrifices family, I'll deal with Galactus.
And that's how shit that ending was. That is making you think that way. And another thing, in every iteration of the Fantastic Four, the whole point is they come together and they work together to defeat the threat. In this, that was not the case. Sue Storm overpowered Galactus, and Silver Surfer pushed him through the portal. I suppose you could say Reed set up the portal.
They were helping a little bit.
Yeah, and Ben knocks down a building that has his like final support, but Johnny doesn't actually do anything. They just didn't get that right. They should have all worked together to fucking knock Galactus through that portal.
I kind of like how Sue was like, it's kind of like the story of the mother who lifts a car to save their baby. She exerts all this power because she's trying to save Franklin, and she sacrifices herself. And I felt like that was appropriate for what the movie was about, and the sacrifice that she's willing to make to save everyone, to save her son. I understand what you mean, that the characters fell to the wayside to give space to her, but it felt appropriate for the movie.
Yeah, that's fair. That was the other thing that sort of annoyed me in the movie. Reed is established as being so worried about Franklin and the baby and what's going to happen and his safety, and we even get this scene when he spoke to all the police officers and he's getting them to go around town and arresting all these villains because he's like trying to child-proof the city. But when it comes to, let's go up to space and fight Galactus, bring pregnant Sue on board and risk the baby's life. And there was not even a single hesitation about that with Reed. And I think that's because they don't want to show Pedro Pascal's version of Reed being like, no, you have to stay at home with the baby whilst we go off and fight Galactus. Even though it would have been within his character to say that to her, and fine, have a conflict, and she says, no, you need me, you need my power set, sort of thing.
Yeah, they have a little scene.
Exactly. And they tried to, because they had a scene when they're in bed together and she's like, don't think because I'm not talking about it, I'm not thinking about it. And that's like the worry of going into space with the child, because Reed says, you'll be the first pregnant woman to ever go to space. It's not like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. This is a danger for our child.
But she's so OP that,
Exactly.
I guess, she's going to be fine.
She's more powerful than fucking space gods, so fuck it. Yeah, bring her along.
Okay, I think it's the moment to discuss the post-credit.
Do it.
Okay, so the post-credit was utterly disappointing. I was crushed.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to say you fucking loved it.
No, because, it's fine. It was more or less what I was expecting.
It was less. It was less than what I was expecting.
You teased Doom, but at least I was hoping they would show Robert Downey Jr. for a second,
Why the fuck didn't they do that?
No, they show the fucking guy leaning down, the mask off, and Franklin is touching his face, but you don't see him. It wasn't even him on set, I'm sure, unless this is a scene that we'll see play out in Doomsday, where Doom shows up and kicks off the plot, and then it's gonna be an extended version of this scene. I hope that's the case, but
no, I bet he wasn't even on set for this.
Yeah, it wasn't there. It would have gotten us so much more pumped for future movies if we saw him and finally, okay, he's back, he's Doom, all right, what's gonna happen? Instead, we just have this cosplayer on set. We don't see his face, we don't see anything, like we see him for like a second. I personally thought the events of this movie, as I said, would lead directly into the story of Doomsday, like what happens here has repercussions on future movies, like, Reed messes with the fabric of space and time or something like that, and there was what ushers Doom and all that. Instead, the story wraps up in a very neat little bow.
At the end of Thunderbolts, the post-credit is the Fantastic Four ship coming into their universe, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we've just seen the whole Fantastic Four movie, including post-credits, and that still hasn't happened. So it's like, now what, we got to wait another movie for you to pick up on that point? It seems, I thought, like you said, we were going to go straight into that. We were going to see Fantastic Four arrive on Earth, or it was going to be Doctor Doom arriving on Earth, something like that.
I am guessing at this point that maybe we're going to get an extended version of this scene where Doom is properly introduced at the beginning of Doomsday, and then, the Fantastic Four, for some reason, they need to travel to the main MCU universe to warn everybody that Doomsday is coming and they need to do stuff. And that's when the Thunderbolts post-credit happens, because that's supposed to be like a scene that they literally took from Doomsday. They were shooting it and they added it into the movie.
Oh,
Or
really?
something
Okay.
like that. So, yeah, I guess that's the case, but it felt a bit,
It felt cheap. It was, and I was, because like I said, loads of people in my cinema stayed for it. I was so intrigued to see the reaction, and there was a guy sitting, 2 chairs away from me in a Superman t-shirt, and he looks, middle-aged dude. I thought he was going to be lapping this shit up. I thought he was going to be on his knees, salivating this dude, but he started laughing. And I laughed as well, because I thought it was so, like you said, it felt cosplay, it felt silly, like to not see him and just to be like, oh, there's the mask and he's holding the mask. And
it's such a nice lighting, there's this sun coming through the window, like showing me Doom in a very moody, dark space.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it felt like a bit, I don't know, they could have done so much more with this and get us excited.
Yeah, have him do something sinister already. Get us be like, okay, this guy is going to be a serious villain for the next film. And already, major red flag. He's got the fucking mask off already. How much is Robert Downey Jr. going to wear this fucking mask? Probably for a minuscule amount of the movie.
It's gonna drop it. It's gonna drop it in this scene and
Yeah,
never put it on again.
and that'll be it. Yeah. And our theories about it being some nanotech bullshit, at least that's not,
Nice.
that doesn't look to be true, because it looks like a solid mask that he's holding. So, but we can see.
I mean, for the little we saw of the costume, it looked fine. It looked comic accurate. So I'm happy with that. But I wish we could have seen more, because now we have to wait another year just to see this resolved. And yeah, we'll see if they manage to stick the landing with this character. I'm really curious.
So we had a few different things we were sort of building up to with this film. We were pitting it against Superman, and we were also pitting it against the previous iterations of Fantastic Four. For you, is this better than Superman?
No, Superman is still the superior movie.
Okay.
This is better than all the other iterations of the Fantastic Four, hands down, for sure, easy. It's the best MCU movie we've had since, I guess, Spider-Man No Way Home. It's fun, it's well done. I like the cast, with the exception of Pedro Pascal, which I thought was a bit meh. But yeah, promising first step. Pardon the pun. I love puns.
In phase 7, movie 36, it's we're getting back on track finally.
Yeah, and we discussed this before. I said that if they didn't deliver with this movie, I would have lost interest in the MCU completely. So I'm happy to say that the interest is rekindled. This is a 7 for me. Like Superman, I think we gave it the same score, even though I think Superman is a superior movie. I like them both kind of equally. The ending, like the final act of Superman, was way more exciting and interesting than this. So, it wins with that. It wins with characterization as well, I think, and like general creativity in action sequences. But this was decent. This was fun. This was a good time at the movies for me.
Yeah. I personally enjoyed Fantastic Four more than Superman.
Oh, nice.
I think it'll have better rewatchability in the years to come. Galactus as the selling point was the best aspect of the movie for me. I think that's the reason I'll go back and watch this film, is to see especially see that middle sequence where they first meet Galactus and they run away. That was really good. I think that was better than anything Superman had to offer. I thought the villains in Superman weren't as good as Galactus.
You just hate Crypto, man. Like, you just don't want to see that dog again.
Crypto fucking sucked. But they had some similar issues, like they weren't Superman wasn't focused enough on Superman, and the Fantastic Four was maybe too focused on two of the characters that we felt a bit underwhelmed with others. It's a bit frustrating, because I felt similarly when I came out of cinema for both. I was a bit underwhelmed. Just good, nothing too exciting. But yeah, and I agree with you. This is the best Fantastic Four film that's been made so far.
I mean,
and
that's a faint praise.
yeah. If you weren't surprised, then this is the best one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think I gave Superman either a 6 or a 6.5. This gets a 6.5. Doesn't probably for me. Yeah, only a bit better. But you are right. It has got me a little bit more interested in Doomsday.
Yes, come to the
The next film.
light. You wanted me to come to your dark side of the fandom and be like, oh, this sucks, this is horrible. But no, this summer has given us hope for the future that we're gonna get fun blockbuster movies again. Good for them, good for the DCU and for the MCU to bringing us the bare minimum to be entertained.
Yeah. Good, but not quite fantastic.
Well, that's gonna be the title of the video.